The corporate game. This is my story of fighting for justice in the world of a big corporation, where one man decided to ruin my reputation and led to my dismissal. But I wasn't about to give up. Are you sure you want to accept this offer? My wife asked me when I told her the news. She knew how important career development was to me, but she also understood the risks involved. Yes, of course, I replied confidently. This is the chance of a lifetime. The largest corporation in the country, opportunities for growth. How could I refuse? She sighed and smiled. Okay, well, since you're so sure, I support you. Just remember that family is more important than any job. I nodded and hugged her and thought she was right. But deep down, I already knew that work would be my priority for the next few years. I was hired as a junior manager in the marketing department. It wasn't easy at first, endless reports, meetings that dragged on for hours, and constant pressure from above. But I tried my best, worked overtime, and showed results. A year later, I was promoted to senior manager. In the office, I quickly realized that success here depended not only on professional qualities, but also on the ability to play political games. Some colleagues openly schemed against each other, others flattered the management, and others simply went with the flow. I decided that I would act honestly and openly, relying solely on my professionalism. But I soon realized that honesty is not always rewarded. A couple more years passed and I became head of marketing. Now I had subordinates, a budget, and the authority to make important decisions. The work became more complicated, but much more interesting. I implemented new strategies, attracted big clients, and increased the company's profits. Management noticed my achievements and began to consider me as a promising candidate for promotion. One day, the director of development came to me and said he wanted to discuss my future in the company. "John, you've done a great job," he began. "I'd like to offer you the opportunity to lead a new project. The development of an innovative product that could be a real breakthrough in the market. What do you say?" "Thank you for your trust," I replied, trying to hide my excitement. "Of course, I agree." Thus began a new stage of my career. The project turned out to be incredibly complex and demanding. We worked days on end, often staying late, sometimes even nights. But the result lived up to expectations. The product hit the market and instantly gained popularity. Customers started placing orders, profits grew, and my name became associated with success. 6 months after the launch, I was invited to a meeting with the board. They congratulated me on the successful completion of my work and offered me the position of the head of the development department. This was a huge achievement. I felt that all my hard work had finally paid off. Along with the promotion came new challenges. Many colleagues were jealous of my success. They began to spread rumors aimed at discrediting me in front of the management. One such rumor concerned the allegedly inflated budget for the project. Although I knew this was not true, I had to spend a lot of time and effort to refute these allegations. At first, I thought I could handle it on my own. I gathered all the documents proving the correctness of the expenditures and submitted them to the finance department. However, rumors continued to circulate, and I knew that the fight would be long and difficult. At one of the meetings, the CFO raised the issue of my project's budget. I explained that every penny had been spent reasonably and within the approved plan. But some board members, especially Robert Hartman, were incredulous. "John, your explanation sounds convincing," Robert said, pretending to believe me. "But perhaps we should have an independent audit to make sure we're in the clear?" I knew it was a ruse. An independent audit could take weeks, if not months, and would distract me from my main job. But I couldn't say no, because it might look suspicious. The audit did take a long time, and in the end found nothing. The budget was fine, but that didn't stop the flow of new accusations. Colleagues continued to discuss me behind my back, and management increasingly wondered if I deserved my position. Meanwhile, Robert Hartman continued to interfere with my projects. He proposed questionable ideas that clearly went against our strategic goals. One day he even tried to get me to sign a contract with a company his brother owned. "John, let's sign the contract," Robert insisted. "It's a great company, and the quality of the product is top-notch." "I'm sorry, Mr. Hartman," I said firmly. "Our standards require a tender process, and so far I see no reason to bypass it." Robert frowned. "You're being too direct, John. Sometimes you have to be flexible." His tone was threatening, and I realized that our relationship was becoming increasingly strained. Robert began to look for ways to get rid of me. First, he tried to undermine my credibility among the staff by spreading false rumors about my professionalism. Then he started sabotaging my projects by withholding funding and resources. Every day became an ordeal. I came to work knowing that I would face new obstacles created by Robert and his allies. I tried to stay calm and keep working, but the tension was building. I felt like I was caught in a trap from which there was no way out. Then one day, when I least expected it, came the news that turned everything upside down. I arrived at work one morning to find my office closed. There was a note on the door demanding that I report to the CEO's office immediately. My heart clenched with a premonition of trouble. When I entered, I was greeted by the cold stares of Robert and several other board members. The atmosphere in the room was heavy, almost oppressive. The CEO, who was sitting behind a massive desk, slowly stood up and spoke. "John, we have decided to dismiss you for loss of confidence." The words sounded like a blow to the head. The world spun around me, and I could barely stay on my feet. How is this possible? After so many years of successful work, after all the achievements and successes I had achieved for this company, I could be thrown out on the street so easily? Everything inside was boiling with indignation and incomprehension. But why? I squeezed out of myself, trying to keep my composure. I did everything I could for the success of the company. All projects were completed on time and with excellent results. What went wrong? No one answered. Robert looked at me with an icy grin, as if enjoying my defeat. The rest of the board avoided meeting my eyes. "I don't need your explanations," the CEO said. "The decision has been made, and it is final. Please pack your things and leave the building within the hour." The world was crumbling before my eyes. I stood there, dazed and confused, unable to believe what was happening. How could an honest and conscientious employee suddenly become redundant? I wanted to scream, to argue, to prove my innocence, but the words stuck in my throat. Slowly, as if in a dream, I left the CEO's office. My mind was spinning with thoughts that all this was some kind of monstrous mistake, a misunderstanding that would soon be resolved. But reality turned out to be cruel and inexorable. Returning to my former office, I began to pack my things. Every item reminded me of the years I had spent here, of the projects I had realized, of the people I had worked side by side with. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I held back, not wanting to show weakness in front of those watching me from around the corners. When I was done, the guards escorted me to the exit. The doors of the building closed behind me, and I was alone on the street, with a box of personal belongings in my hands. The wind ruffled my hair, and for the first time in a long time I felt completely helpless. Emptiness awaited me at home. My wife, seeing my condition, rushed to me with questions, but I couldn't speak. Everything I had worked for so many years was destroyed in an instant. My whole career, all my hopes and dreams had collapsed in an instant. But I was not going to give up. The fire of vengeance and justice burned inside me. I knew that this was not the end, but only the beginning of a new battle. The first thing I did was go to the lawyers. They said that I had a good chance of winning the case if I could prove that my dismissal was illegal. The problem was that most of the evidence was inside the company and I no longer had access to it. So I decided to talk to former co-workers. Most of them refused to help for fear of losing their jobs. Only a few agreed to testify in my favor, but their words were not enough. In desperation, I started digging through old documents and correspondence, hoping to find some clue. And one day I came across some interesting information. It turned out that shortly before I was fired, the company had hired a new employee, Robert Hartman's nephew. This guy had no experience in our field, but he was given a management position. It all became clear. Robert had used his influence to get rid of me and put his relative in my place. It was a gross violation of corporate rules, and I decided to use this fact in court. The trial dragged on for many months, turning into a real fight for justice. The company's lawyers used every possible legal trick to delay the case and avoid liability. Each session turned into a battle where I fought not only for my rights, but also for my reputation. My health was deteriorating. Nervous tension, sleepless nights, and constant thinking about how to protect myself wore me down physically and mentally. But I did not give up. The support of a few loyal friends kept me afloat. They believed in me even when things seemed hopeless. Finally, after many hearings and examinations, the court made a decision. It was unequivocal. My dismissal was declared illegal. The company was obliged to pay me significant compensation for moral damage and loss of earnings. But most importantly, my good name was restored. This was the most important thing for me, because reputation in the business world means a lot. Moreover, Robert Hartman was charged with abuse of authority. His actions were recognized as illegal and he was removed from his position. This was a symbol of victory not only for me, but for everyone who believed in justice and fairness. After the trial was over, I felt a sense of relief. But at the same time I realized that the business world is cruel and unpredictable. Honesty and professionalism are important qualities, but without political cunning and the ability to protect one's interests, they can be useless. After everything that happened, I decided to start my own business. Using my accumulated experience and knowledge, I founded a small consulting firm specializing in the development of innovative products. Over time, my company managed to gain a good reputation, and now we cooperate with major clients all over the world. Sometimes I think back to those times when I worked in the corporation and realized that everything that happened was not in vain. These trials have made me stronger and wiser. Most importantly, I learned to never give up and to believe in myself no matter what. This is how my story of fighting for justice in the world of a big corporation ended. I hope it inspired someone to do their own thing and reminded them that honesty and hard work will always be rewarded.